Hello, hello. Welcome back to day 2, everyone. Let me see who is in the house today. Welcome back to day 2 of the Strategic Leadership Bootcamp, where we're focusing today on kind of removing the biggest roadblock to high quality decision making. So, who's in the house? I want to hear from you. Go ahead and drop me a note in the chat. If you had any massive revelations overnight after yesterday, let me know. Share with us, own your wins, all that good stuff. So please feel free to engage in the chat. Obviously, I know there might be many of you here logging on over the next minute or two. I will try to catch as many comments as I can as we go. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and give you the official welcome back. So thank you so much for the dozens of notes, the thank yous, for sharing how you're already applying what we talked about yesterday. I love it when people apply what they learn quickly, because like I mentioned yesterday, that transformation doesn't live in the knowing, it lives in the doing. And that's kind of our premise for this entire week. Now, if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. I'm Bribiesca-Hedin. I'm the CEO of Bridgewell Professional Services, and I'm a strategy execution expert and management consultant turned leadership coach. And my intention over these 5 days is really to leave you better equipped to manage yourself, your teams, your career, to do that all effectively so you can get that promotion, the job, or maybe just gain the strategic clarity about how to approach your career and create more ease, more confidence, because it's not actually supposed to feel like you're pushing a boulder, that same boulder uphill every day, and then having it, kind of roll back over you on its way down every night. It's not supposed to feel that way. So yesterday, though, just as a quick recap, you got to see yourself in my career mobility quadrant, right? And started to see how it's reflected in your experience. So I would love to hear from you. We agreed that we need to spend more time being strategic versus reactive, because the only thing more important than knowing where you fit in your organization's strategic plan is knowing where they fit into yours. So today, as I mentioned a moment ago, we're really going to be focusing on the quality of your decision making, right? Because in the quadrant yesterday, and let me go ahead and bring this up for a moment. So here's where we are today. Yesterday, right, because of that career mobility quadrant, you really understood the impact of enterprise strategy alignment, of high quality decision making, and what it looks like on both how your brain is working and the results that you get, because of that. And your entire experience professionally, when either of these are kind of out of bounds or not where we want them to be. So let's see, I think we have here we go. There is the career mobility quadrant I introduced yesterday. For those of you who were not here, please know you can go on back in and watch the replay from yesterday. So I'm glad you're here, Michelle. I see you. Let's see, Markcliff. Oh, I see you're calling out Markcliff, LinkedIn user. Welcome, Dana. Suzanne, welcome. Atlang, welcome back. Byte Designing, welcome back. Alexandra, Marie-Eve, Dana. Let's see. I know a lot of people, I won't be able to shout out everyone. Kimberly, but so glad that you're here. Hi, Rebecca. Hello. Welcome to everyone. So I actually want to take just a moment. I want to hear from you. Who had something kind of magnificent show up, some new revelation, or really get some real clarity and awareness about why you might be experiencing what you're experiencing based on what we covered yesterday with the career mobility quadrant? I want to hear from you. So if you had some massive ahas overnight, if you all of a sudden got extreme clarity about where you've been inadvertently over-investing your time and energy in ways that doesn't seem to be moving the needle or making the difference. I want to hear from you, and I'm going to come back. I see that. Okay. So I see a note there from someone saying, I'm in the wrong organization. I'm in the wrong organization. That is, nothing has gone wrong. If that is you right now thinking I'm in the wrong organization, nothing has gone wrong, right? In fact, that's the first step to things starting to go right. And that simply is getting real clarity around what's working for you and what isn't. And then that next step, real clarity on why it's not working for you and what steps you need to take to actually make it work. So nothing has gone wrong. If you're feeling like you want to bang your head against the wall because you're thinking, how could I have wasted so much time or effort or whatever the case is, nothing has gone wrong. This is exactly what you're supposed to be thinking. If it turns out that when you started to bring into focus your strategic plan, even if you don't have an official strategic plan, but your objectives, what's most important to you, when you've started to kind of pivot from focusing on simply and exclusively what's on your organization's plan to also now spanning so that you can see what's within your plan, and all of a sudden realizing, those don't actually align the way that I hoped they'd aligned. That's exactly perfect, because consider the alternative, that you would continue to be along for the ride, right? You literally continue to be along for the ride wherever the organization goes, and then wondering, month after month, year after year, why you have this deep sense of either dissatisfaction or like, what happened? I had all of these goals, all of these dreams, all of these intentions, this impact I wanted to make, and I don't even know how I got here. Nothing has gone wrong. I want to assure you all. Okay, so I'm going to look back at your comments. Let's see. I realized that in my last role, I was very mission aligned, but never strategically aligned. And it was a hard lesson. It is, Kate, isn't it? It's a hard lesson. It's costly, because here's the thing. You are showing up and giving it your all. It'd be different if you were phoning it in, but you're showing up. You're doing the thing. And you might even be knocking it out of the park. But if that strategic alignment is missing, then you're going to be likely over here, right? In that steady, reliable, slow moving, and having the constant thought of, I'm knocking it out of the park, but no one seems to care, or it doesn't seem to make a difference, or somehow I'm still not seeing the progress I expected to see. So thank you for sharing that. Okay. Erin, thank you. I'm good at what I do. I'm not being seen by the right people. Yep. Anybody else having that experience? I'm good at what I do. I'm not being seen by the right people. Okay. And Lala, the personal strategic plan and where my organization fits hit home for me. I hope so. And I know I say that, and sometimes it almost causes a pause when people are like, wait, I'm supposed to have a strategic plan? Yes, you are. Because no one has more agency in your career, your path, your impact, your growth, or your brilliance than you do. No one. So, one of the big mistakes people make, and we'll talk about this later in the week, is thinking that their career development and growth is to be left in the hands of their organization to figure out. And as I alluded to yesterday, clearly that's not the way for that to work, because what you're doing is outsourcing your power, your effectiveness, your opportunities to someone else getting it right. And how can someone else get it right when they have their own set of objectives and it may or may not align with yours? So, okay, let's see. What else do we have here? Okay, Dana, I realize that decision quality and passable essay isn't enough. I focus so much on decision quality, I really haven't given attention to essay. And essay, for those of you who weren't here yesterday, that's strategic alignment. We talked about enterprise strategy alignment and the importance of making sure that where you're focusing your attention, if in fact you want to grow within that organization, making sure that where you're focusing your attention, your effort, your energy is actually aligned with something that's important to them, that's important to the department, to their future, to their strategic roadmap. It has to be important to the organization. Otherwise, you get pseudo meaningful results. Results that maybe they're meaningful to you, but they truly aren't meaningful to the organization. Okay, I would love to keep going through all of these. Let's see. The part about reacting, being derailed by forgetting or not having the focus on my personal strategy. Yeah, I think obviously, as you're seeing from the comments, just a few that I'm sharing, and if you can see the comments on whatever platform you're joining us on, you can see that you're not alone. So again, I know sometimes the other side, right, the back of the hand of getting new awareness is thinking, how could I have done that? How could I have wasted all that time? Nothing has gone wrong. And we're going to go on, today to really get into that high quality decision making. So let's go. Who's ready? Who is ready? I'm ready. So let's start, because we have about 20 minutes and we want to pack a lot in there. So be ready, have your notebook in hand. We are going. Okay. So today, again, I want to introduce you to what I think is the absolute number one mistake or roadblock that even the most accomplished, ambitious, educated, decorated professionals make. And that's not knowing what's driving their decisions and their actions. And then you'll see in a moment how closely those tie. But this is what lands them in spending more time in the land of the reactive versus the strategic. And as we said yesterday, high quality decision making is characterized by spending more time being strategic versus being reactive. So to help you understand that, I want to introduce something I call the decision driver model or the career CEO model. So for those of you who've been with me before, you've seen this, you're very familiar with it. We refer back to it in my group leadership program often, in my one-on-one programs often, because the quality of your thinking matters. And you need to understand what's driving your decisions. You need to understand. You just can't be along for the ride for whatever your brain serves up, because let's face it, our brains are brilliant, but left to their own devices and on autopilot, they're not always serving up, the content that's best suited for what we're trying to accomplish. They're not serving up the most, even the most accurate content. Right? It's just like your Facebook feed or any other news feed. You get sucked into the negativity of whatever that first item was that you looked at and started to really entertain. Like, oh, look at that. When you inadvertently get sucked into really, really bad news, and all of a sudden, your Facebook feeds or your any other feed really starts to tell you about every other piece of bad news going on. So, Flavia, I think there's something wrong with your keyboard. Just letting you know. I don't know if anybody else can see what Flavia's typing, but it doesn't seem to be what she means to be typing. So let's do that and give her a chance to pull it together. Okay, let's get back. I always love it when I type extended notes without looking up, and then realize my hands were an entirely different part of the keyboard than I thought they were in. So I don't know if anybody's had that experience, but wow, I think there's a whole conversation to be had around that. And we're likely going to be doing that when we're talking about influence, because that really is spot on. What a strange analogy. So thank you, Flavia, for that analogy that you had pop up. That's what it's like when you're doing the things you think are important, only to find out it wasn't important in the way you thought it was. Like, only to find out that I was typing all the letters and words I thought were important, only to find out my hands were in the wrong place. So it wasn't going to land the way that I expected. Anyway, just so fantastic. Okay, let's go. So this is the decision driver journey. And I introduced the decision driver journey across three I guess, elements, if you want to think about it that way. There's the leader experience, that being the experience to you as the leader. There is your focus, meaning where most of your mental brilliance and energy is going, right? Most of that attention. And then there's the decision driver on the other side. And the decision driver is what's actually driving or prompting your decisions. And here's what I want you to know about the decision driver. You'll start to notice as we're going through this, that the thoughts, right, the nature of the thoughts driving your decisions, they also control what appear to you to be the options available to you. So they will obscure options that might actually work for you and serve up the options that are in line with the kind of thinking you're doing. You'll see what I mean in a moment, but I want you to hold on to that, because think back to moments where it has felt like, I don't have any other option. I don't know what to do. I'm in a corner. And all of a sudden, you engage a friend or a colleague or a trusted advisor, and they're like, oh, well, why don't you try this or this or this? And you're like, oh, that didn't occur to me, right? That did not occur to me. And the only reason that happens is because, the kind of place you were in at the moment, from where you were drawing your thoughts and your ideas and your initiative, your creativity, could only serve up potential actions and options in line with that place you were in. You're going to understand now more about the place you were in. Okay, and that's the purpose of this model. I'm going to make it larger, make myself smaller so that you guys can see it more clearly. Okay, I think that's better. Now, starting at the bottom. Oh, sorry, that is still wonky. And I was hoping that we got it right, but let me try one more thing. Let me see if there is. No. Yeah, let's leave it alone. We'll do the best that we can. But starting at the bottom, your focus is on yourself. It's like you've got the flashlight focused on yourself, because all you're trying to do is keep yourself safe. What that's supposed to say down there that looks really wonky and not showing up correctly is concerned citizen. That's what we call this space, being in that concerned citizen space. Your entire kind of focus here is simply on staying safe. It's like, what do I need to do to keep myself from losing more than I've already lost or risking more than I've already risked? So that experience, you're in a constant experience of fear and anxiety and hiding. And so all of your decisions are coming from that perspective of loss avoidance and self-preservation. Loss avoidance and self-preservation. But here's what's interesting about being in this space. Okay. Here's what's interesting about being in this space. That when you make decisions out of fear, I want you to think back to the last time you made a decision out of fear. When you make decisions out of fear, we do that because we think that the outcome is going to be, we feel more safe. Now consider for a moment last time that might have been your space, whatever realm it was in, whether it was personal, professional, relationship, whatever the case is. Last time you made a decision out of fear, I would love to hear from you if it actually resulted in you feeling more safe. Because what I'm finding now, having this conversation with thousands and thousands, literally and thousands of audiences, is that decisions made out of fear, actually, what they end up doing is having us more finely tune into everything else that can possibly go wrong. So what does that mean? That means we're still in fear, potentially in more fear after that. Yeah, and Natalia, I see you're saying, no, it did not. It did not leave you. It did not leave you feeling more safe. So let's go. I'm going to go on to the next one. The next one. Now, this is where your focus is on your image and your ego. This is what I call the self-conscious careerist. Now, in this space, this is probably the closest we have to a default, right? So it's not all bad here, even though it seems like it the way that it's painted in this version of the model. But when you're focused on image and ego, you tend to spend a lot of time in your head and wondering what everybody else is thinking, saying, or doing about you. Right? So it can be a very frustrating space to be. you're very reactive. And what that means is that you're in, let's say, in meetings, and if you're not getting the nods and the smiles that you expected from everybody else in the meeting, you will decide something has gone wrong. You'll be like, what did that raised eyebrow mean? Right? Things like, why didn't they invite me to lunch? I was here. And turning everything into a potential diss, right? Into something having gone off the rails because of something you did. So very reactive place, very little peace in that way. And the decision driver, the primary decision driver, is really looking good, right? Feeding that image and that ego, saving face, getting the last word, being right. Right. Has anybody ever had the experience of being with either the boss or the colleague or just somebody in your life who always needs to be right, even when they're wrong? They always need to be right, even when they're wrong. And that, just so you know, in case it helps you understand where they're coming from this space of really trying to safeguard their image and their ego, right? They're in a constant battle with kind of self-esteem and having their self-esteem come from somebody else's temporary approval. So when your self-esteem is dependent on someone else's temporary approval, you're going to spend a lot of time trying to look good and trying to get it right. You guys see that? A lot of time in there. Okay, now we're going to go on to the next one. And this, of course, is where we all want to be. So I want to remind you for a moment, right? For all of you who are like, yes, now I know I'm going to go ahead and just be a career strategist and, career CEO and chief strategist all the time. This is a journey. So what you're going to find is, and I'm going to get into this one in a moment, but I just want to assure you, what you're going to find is that as you look at your life, as you look at your career, all of the communities you're a part of, you're going to notice that there are places, moments, or people where you show up as a chief strategist. And then conversely, there are places, moment, or people that you find in their presence or in those moments or places, you show up as a concerned citizen or someplace else. So just so you know, just to fast forward, the homework, if you want to call it that, or success work or application I'm going to give you is to begin to notice what the triggers are that have you show up in one place versus in another, right? What triggers have you show up in one place versus another? Because that's when the brilliance really starts. Okay, so let's go into the chief strategist, because this, of course, is where we all want to be. And then we're going to talk about how to actually get there and stay there, what it requires to spend most of your time there. Now, the chief strategist is really focused on mission. In other words, what am I trying to accomplish here? What's most important here? What's the outcome I want here? Like, that is the question, right? That's always driving how the chief strategist is working, how the chief strategist is thinking. It's always around that intended outcome or that mission. So the decision driver is always around conviction to purpose. And purpose doesn't have to be something lofty, like, I worked at a cancer center. It doesn't have to be about finding the cure. I'll be frank with you that the purpose can be as simple as making it to the end of this miserable project so I can add the experience and expertise I gained to my LinkedIn and find my next role at a better company. You guys hear me? It can be that straightforward and that tactical, but there needs to be a conviction to purpose. And I'll tell you why in a moment. But I want to go back to the experience for you. The experience for you as the individual, as the leader, when you're operating at this level, it's one of clarity. And it's not clarity because you know everything that's going to happen, right? Because some of you have an addiction to certainty. And if we have time, we'll talk about that later. But some of you have an addiction to certainty. And that's not what this means. What this means is that even in the face of uncertainty, you believe in your ability to figure it out, right? You believe in your ability to figure it out. It also means you spend more time in the zone. And I like to think about, and I know people talk about being in the zone and flow and all those things. All that means is that you spend less time assessing and judging and wondering what everybody else is going to think, and are they going to give you the kudos and blah, 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 and are they going to like it? Versus, what am I trying to create here, and what do I need to do to make it land? Because I want you to think about it. Even sitting here, right, and today we have a smaller group than we did yesterday. But whether I'm with a group of 10 people or 1,000 people online, and if my concern is I need to say every word correctly so that they'll like me or so that I'll be impressive, can you imagine how differently I'm going to show up and how limited my ability to add value to you and be with you and see your comments and add what I need to add, right, to extend the context? Can you see how much more difficult that would be if instead of being with you and my purpose of I want them to walk away with what they need in order to show up effective immediately, in order to feel empowered, in order to reconnect with whatever that intention or purpose was that they had for themselves. Like that purpose is worth my fumbling over. That purpose is worth me getting it wrong. It's worth my being embarrassed and my slides not working and my saying the wrong thing. Are you guys with me? Because the alternative is to try to get it right and to try to look good. And here's the problem with trying to get it right and trying to look good. The moment that something doesn't go according to plan, we lose it. The moment that someone raises an eyebrow or heckles or asks a question that we think, oh, are they trying to show me up? We lose our ability to be effective. We lose the best part of our brain and our ability to stay strategic and continue to ask ourselves, what's most important here? And we fall into the land of the reactive. Can you guys see this? Can you guys see what I'm talking about here? See that those two bottom levels, they live in the world of the reactive. And that's where most of us spend our time, I'll be frank. We're like, well, I'll wait and see what so-and-so says. Or this is my decision, but I'm going to get 17 other perspectives, right? Because you're constantly second guessing yourself, not because there's anything wrong with second guessing yourself, but because you don't trust yourself, because you need to get that validation from elsewhere, or because you think if someone puts you down, it means something inherently about you. And nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing could be further from the truth, because let me tell you, other people's attitudes or critiques of you are a better reflection of who they are and what's happening in their heads than who you are. And you know how we know this is accurate? Because I can say the exact same thing to a room of 10 people or 100 people or 1,000 people, and you've probably had this exact same experience, and you'll get 10 different responses, 10 different attitudes. Some people will walk out elated and inspired, and others will walk out feeling criticized, feeling put down, right? Feeling called out. So that's how we know it has nothing to do with us. So if it has nothing to do with us, then what better reason to stay convicted to purpose? And I mean conviction in a good way. I don't mean like blindly dedicated to something and then in the face of new information, you're unwilling to rethink, right? Rethinking is the land of leaders. You're supposed to be there all the time. But I mean conviction to purpose as in you know what's most important here. You know what you came to get. Okay. Let's go. Now, so I want you to think about this for a second, right? I introduced you to some decision drivers. You know, there's fear and safety. You can be making decisions out of that space. There's praise and ego. There's purpose and outcome. And here's what's important. It's not that any of them are wrong. The problem is when you think you're making decisions out of purpose and outcome, but you're actually making them for praise. You're actually making them for safety. Can you guys see what a mess that becomes when you're constantly kind of out of integrity in your own actions? Because here's the result of that. When you're pretending to be standing for one thing or taking actions for one purpose, but you're actually taking them for another, either to look good or to play it safe or something else, People feel when we're out of integrity. Okay, and I know that's kind of a weird thing to say, right, in this leadership conversation, but I want you to think about it. People feel when we're out of integrity. And you know how you can tell? Have you ever been engaged with someone where you thought they said all the right things, they did all the right things, but for some reason there's something weird, like I just don't feel good with them, or I just don't trust them, or something's out of sorts. That's where that comes from, right? They're pretending they're there for one conversation or purpose, when in fact there's a different intent. And sometimes they're not even clear on what it is. So it's not even coming from malice. It's simply the fact that there's not alignment there. There's not awareness there of what's actually driving their decisions and how they're showing up. So what I want to leave you with, this is most important. If you want to stay, right, here, right, we want to stay here, you need to focus on purpose over praise. You need to know what's most important. A leader can't be caught up with, is everybody going to like me? A leader needs to stay in the space of, how do I show up in my best, and how do I elicit the best from everybody else on my team or in my space or my community or this initiative? And same goes for when you're in that space of job searching, right? When you're in that space of trying to get to the next level. Like, what's most important here? How do I keep myself thinking and connected to that purpose, to what's most important as it relates to the goals that I'm trying to accomplish? So let me go back to, so I know we're just about done, and of course, a couple minutes over, but bring it back to this. Enterprise strategy alignment and high quality decision-making. I want to hear from you. How different do you suspect your results would be if you were making decisions, right? More of your decisions out of this top level, out of conviction to a purpose bigger than looking good and getting it right, than what you're getting now? What kind of impact do you think that would have on your outcomes? Let's see. Crystal, I see that everyone's not going to be added to your Christmas card list. Not everyone is going to be your friend, right? Not everyone is going to be your friend. And when you live your life believing that if I do everything just perfectly, other people are going to respond in kind, like I'm going to just get the promotion because I'm doing all the right things. That's not how that works, right? I'm a nice person, so people are going to respond to me nicely. That's not how that works. It doesn't mean you can't be responsible for the energy and attitude you bring into every space or place and every interaction. What it does mean is you can't be responsible for someone else's response. You get that? Because it's not about you. How they show up is not about you. And I really want you to hold on to that. So I want you to start showing up where you're not looking for their praise, but rather you're being committed and in alignment with your purpose, whatever that is, right? Learning this new solution so that I can add it to my LinkedIn, getting through this project so that I can finally make it to the finish line and, transition to a new one. Calling as many people as I need to call until I get a yes for an informational interview. You guys with me? Okay, so of course we've gone over, but I want to open it up so that there is time for you to share your key takeaways. Please share your key takeaways, and then I'll stay on for Q&A as well. But I want to hear from you. Was this helpful as it relates to understanding what's driving your decisions? But not just that, not just what's driving your decisions, but what's driving other people's decisions, where sometimes, have you ever had the experience of someone taking an action? You're like, what were they thinking? Why did they do that? That was like the worst possible thing they could have done or said, the worst choice they could have made. Have you ever had that experience? And that's where that comes from. That experience comes from them not knowing what's driving their decisions and simply having fallen into the land of reactivity, simply having fallen into reacting to what's going on. Okay, let's see. You're responsible for you and your being. Makes sense. Yes. You're responsible for your energy, how you show up, how prepared you are, how you're willing to engage. You're not responsible for someone else's willingness to catch you winning. Are you guys with me? You're not responsible for someone else's willingness or unwillingness to catch you winning. Okay, let's see. What else you guys? You guys have some great stuff going on over here. Yeah, this is so true. Nurse Jamie, I've learned what type of orgs I can work at that meet my personal choices. Some places look great on paper, but they're not in alignment with my values. And we're going to talk more about that. Actually, we're going to talk more about that because I think we spend a lot of time focusing on what an organization or even a person tells us is important to them. And of course, we don't want to disregard what someone tells us is important, but we want to see what they actually show us, right? So that there's what they say is important, and then there's what they show us is important. And we're going to talk about that tomorrow, but I want to leave you with that because that's so incredibly important. There's this. Let's see. Ocean, even if you try your best to please everyone, there's no way to win. You're always going to be the villain in somebody's story. So the best use of your energy is to focus on the things you have the power to change. Yes. And here's the thing. I know I've been saying this recently and I keep butchering it, but Denzel Washington, you guys let me know if you've heard this quote. And I'm going to go ahead and probably put it up today on my, on social because I love it so much. But it's something to the effect of, not everyone is going to want to be your friend. Right? Because your inner spirit is going to grate against their inner demons. And you can take that as either spiritually or not, because I just took it as an everyday of we all have our inner demons, but you can see how deep that goes. Sometimes how we show up grates on somebody, not because we did anything wrong, but sometimes it's simply because we remind them of what they could be doing. We remind them of what they could be aspiring to. We remind them of the stand they could be taking, and that's okay. As leaders, we're okay with making people uncomfortable as a result of how powerfully we're showing up. You guys with me? Okay, let's see. Crystal, you're not everyone's cup of tea. They may be a coffee drinker. I love that so much. I love that so much. And yes, Hajnal, if everyone's happy with you, you're doing something wrong. Yeah, unfortunately, you're probably spending more time focusing on what makes people happy and makes people like you, and right, the people pleaser syndrome, spending more time there than spending time asking the question, what's most important here now? How can I help our initiative progress? How can I help my client best? What do they need to hear for it to make the biggest impact for them? You see the difference? If you're thinking, how can I make them happy, right? If I'm thinking about when I'm coaching someone one-on-one and I'm thinking about how can I make them like me or how can I make them happy, I'm not going to call them out and help them hear what they need to hear. I'm not going to call them out and help them hear what they need to hear. Dr. Keith, your spirit irritates their demons. And sometimes that's just the reality. Not everyone is trying to catch you winning. Everyone say it with me. Not everyone is trying to catch you winning. Nothing has gone wrong. That's simply a reality. Let's see. Esinam, by being more purposeful, it allows me to be more strategic about the meetings I attend. Yeah, I won't be in every meeting on my calendar without knowing why I'm there. Yes, that's higher quality decision-making. Higher quality decision-making. And thank you, Regina, for sharing. This is good stuff. Okay, folks, thank you for giving me an extra 10 minutes. I feel like there was a question I was going to answer. Oh, that's right. So at Lang, you'd asked, can you please talk more about how to notice the triggers when you show up at a different place? Yes. So we're not taught to think about, and you guys, this is probably going to go on for a couple of minutes. So anybody who needs to sign off, please do. And I'm going to let you know, tomorrow we're talking about meaningful progress and building influence. Okay, meaningful progress and building an influence, which ties into what actually is important to your organization versus what they say is important. Okay. And if your interest is piqued, that's good, because this is going to be the difference between driving and looking at a stick-on pretend speedometer and looking at the real speedometer. And I want you always focused on that real speedometer. So let me go back though to this question. So we're talking about triggers. So here's what happens when it comes to our thinking. We're not taught to think about the quality of our thinking. Is that fair? We're not taught to think about the quality of our thinking. And so we think that everything we think is accurate and equal, right? They're completely interchangeable. My brain served it up, so it must be correct. And since we don't know how to spot the quality of our thinking on the surface, what I offer is to watch how you feel, because we are pretty good at noticing how we feel. We might not notice how we're thinking, but we're really good at noticing how we feel, right? Oh, I feel this, or I feel that, or that made me feel this and left me feeling that, right? So what I offer to you is to look for what feels good and what doesn't. And in what way doesn't it feel good? What I mean by that is, are there certain people, when you interact with them, you feel like you need to prove yourself and talk more? Right? You feel like you need to say more. You're unsettled until you've been able to contribute enough. Are there certain people where in their presence you feel like you need to say less? You feel nervous and like you're walking on eggshells. And again, and that may be a person, it may be a community, it may be a topic that's being discussed. You know that the quality of your thinking is hampered based on how you're feeling. And here's the interesting thing about when the quality of your thinking is compromised or hampered, as I said. You're not going to want to believe it's compromised. And you know how we know this and how you can prove it to yourself? If you've ever had the experience of the day after, or even 5 minutes after sending an email saying, oh, I can't believe I did that. Oh my God. So if you've ever had the experience, right, of acting and then saying, what was I thinking? That's just a sign that in the moment, the quality of your thinking was compromised. You just didn't catch it. But here's a quick way to know if the quality of your thinking is compromised. If you're trying to act in haste, right? If you're trying to do it really fast and react really quickly, there's a good chance the quality of your thinking is compromised. If you feel upset until you're able to respond or do a thing, there's a good chance the quality of your thinking is compromised. Like, I'm not going to be able to go on unless I give them a piece of my mind. Now, that's not to suggest that you don't want to share what's so and be clear and straight about your conversation, but it is a good indicator that you're probably not showing up from a place of being strategic on what's most important. And instead, you're trying to relieve the tension you feel of wanting to give them a piece of your mind. Can you guys see the difference? Right? And if you're honest with yourself, can you see where you're taking action from that? I want to hurry up and do it. I want to clear the record. I want to make them like me. I want to say the thing I need to say to have them respond the way I need them to respond. That's how you know that the quality of your thinking may be compromised and that has been a trigger. So obviously we can go on about this for quite a bit of time. But I want to go ahead and wrap it up. I hope this was helpful. Again, please send me your questions. For those of you who are registered, and if you haven't registered, go to strategicleadershipbootcamp.com so that you can join tomorrow evening's How to Say It session. That's at 5:30 p.m. Pacific. not on LinkedIn, not on YouTube. That is actually in our private course portal. So please do. Okay, just briefly, let me address this. Dr. Keith, but what if you have unrest and anxiety until you say the thing you need to say? See, that is the reason that you're going to want to go ahead and blurt it out and do it, because you're going to be like, I can't rest until I do. I want to invite you to be comfortable with the discomfort. And I'll leave you with that, but get comfortable with the discomfort. Sorry, you guys, I have something in my eye. I'm not winking at you. But get comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's okay. It's okay to want to say something. But if you feel like you're like biting your lips so hard you're going to bleed, that is a good indicator the quality of your thinking is compromised. Okay? You guys with me? Okay. I have loved being with you today. I cannot wait to be here with you tomorrow. And again, be sure to go to strategicleadershipbootcamp.com if you're not already signed up and on my mail list, because that is how you're going to get information for the bonus session tomorrow. That is how we're going to get information for the bonus session tomorrow. So thank you so much for being here. Please, bring everyone, bring your teams, bring your colleagues. We're all about empowering anybody who's willing to be empowered. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, leaders.